You're listening now to the Real Estate Lab with Bayut. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Labs with Bayut.com. Over the past 12 episodes, we've given you insights into the very fast-paced UAE real estate market. One huge aspect of that market is the commercial real estate market. Who better to give us insights into that market than no other than the Managing Director, Behnam Bargh of CRC Real Estate. Ben, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. How's things?
Great. Been busy, but busy is good in real estate.
Fantastic. It's good to have you on board. Thanks for coming in. It's one area that we haven't touched on yet is the commercial real estate market. And I'm assuming it's following the trends of other markets.
Absolutely. And you know, the beauty is many people miss commercial real estate sector in the UAE and Dubai, but it's a huge part of the market. You know, I often ask the question, do people come here first to live or to find a job? And if I look at my own journey, and perhaps many of my friends, first you get a job. So commercial is very important for you to come here and then you find a house. So yeah, it is a very important sector, and as well as if you look at the commercial sector, it's also in the same direction as residential, which is very busy, and you know, the prices are going up, and there's a huge demand.
Let's talk a bit more personally about yourself. How long have you been involved in commercial real estate?
So I've been involved about 10 years with commercial and residential real estate, and to be honest with you, if I compare residential and commercial, there are a lot of similarities, but there are some differences. You know, you're dealing with organizations, it's more B2B, and you know, what I like is you don't work as much on the weekend, because obviously when you're catering for businesses, they want to see premises within the working hours.
Of course, so there's benefits to that as well in terms of having your weekends to yourself.
Yeah.
In your journey of commercial real estate, let's talk transactions. Has the shift changed from sort of more rent to sale?
For example, our business, we're traditionally a leasing business, where 80% of our transactions were leasing.
Yep.
And you know, that's for obvious reason. For example, you have buildings that are owned by government, or I would say districts and single landlord owners, so they won't sell, you know, individual units. So there was a lot of leasing. What I've seen over time, more and more shift towards people looking at Dubai long term, they want to purchase. So our business is now 60-40, still leasing, but 40% is transaction in sales.
Which is fantastic. And I can only assume that the sort of transaction amount would be a lot more substantial than...
Look, it depends on the building. It depends, again, like it's similar to residential, you know, it depends if you buy next to Burj Khalifa or you're buying somewhere else, you know. But yes, if you're investing in your office, you have to look at it a bit long term. So, you know, for example, average prices for a good office, quality office, is about 2,000 to 4,000 dirham per square feet now. Some places a bit higher, some places a bit lower. So you need a bit of a long-term vision in terms of your investment.
So let's talk about the last couple of years. Can you give us an overview or some insights into how the sort of market has moved pre-COVID?
Correct. You know, pre-COVID, as I said, we had demand, but the demand wasn't as strong. When COVID hit, nobody knew what's going to happen, especially a lot of us, a lot of organizations allow work from home, flexibility with, you know, staff staying in the office or at home. And globally, we've seen a shift in trend where in Dubai, that was also the case. However, I think traditionally people like in Dubai to go to offices, and organizations, they also demanded the same. And after COVID, we've seen a huge uptake in demand. And where we are at the moment is we've got, you know, certain areas that are 100% occupied. Offices are, you know, all the offices in prime locations are almost at 95%, 98% occupancy. So the demand is really high. What we've seen is a bit of a lack of supply, which is a bit strange. Like, you see a lot of developments and developers that come into market with residential projects, which is very popular. You've seen, you know, things are getting sold out overnight, but we don't see the same, you know, for commercial. Actually, what we've done in terms of analysis, there's only 2% of supply that's coming in the next 5 years to the Dubai market is commercial, which is scary.
2%. Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
very small percentage.
Yeah. In terms of competitiveness for you as an agency, is it a competitive real estate market because there's so limited numbers of stock?
It is very competitive. We are lucky. If I compare residential to commercial, commercial traditionally has been less competitive because if I look at, for example, let's say Dubai's got about 40,000 agents, maybe 80-90% are focusing on residential. Having said that, the lack of stock makes it even more competitive for the commercial agencies to kind of compete and win the deal.
Let's look at for expat entrepreneurs moving to the UAE. What things would you take into consideration when advising them on sort of what properties to take?
So look, I believe that they need to do a lot of market research on jurisdictions. UAE and Dubai itself, you have the mainland and you have a lot of free zones. And depends on the category that you're going to be operating, you need to choose a right free zone or mainland license. A lot of times people choosing like selecting, for example, a DIFC license where they don't need to. They go through a grueling process of approvals. They get the FSA approval, but they're just an online business that it could be in another jurisdiction, cheaper and easier to operate. The other factor is, obviously, in the UAE, it's mandatory to have an office. Like as your workforce grows, you've got to have a square feet of office per that person growth, right? So, a lot of people, if they're coming from Europe, they're used to having a small office but having 100 people working because they work from home and all that. And finally, there are new laws and legislation always introduced. For example, VAT was introduced a few years ago. Many organizations, they have to study that, how it impacts the business. And now we have corporate tax as well. So we are no longer tax-free. It's about, I think 9%. But also there are limitations on who is actually eligible to pay that, how much profit you have to make, how much revenue. So you got to do your market research in terms of setting up. But again, the beauty about Dubai is if you have a good idea, you can make really good money. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, they've come here, they even copy idea from overseas and they become a unicorn ideas and they're sold up.
In terms of a sort of holistic approach, you guys just don't show up and show an office and that. I'm assuming there's a lot more sort of qualification that goes into the questions and it's probably a lot more long-winded process than trying to rent a property for residential purposes,
Correct. That's absolutely correct. And I always say this to my team. I say nobody wakes up, no organization wakes up, says tomorrow morning I'm going to buy a full floor. There's a process, there's a reason. And what I say is these leads are more qualified because they know why they want to move. They have I would say, growth strategy. They want to enter a new market. So in terms of qualification, it's easier because the reasons. Where in residential, it's two individual, one person doesn't like the kitchen and they want to change, and that could happen at any time. So in terms of commercial, I'd say that one of the advantages is because you're catering for B2B sectors, you're dealing with organizations where there's always reasons for them to move. There's a budget set for that move. There's a timeline. So if you're a good broker and qualify that, it's easier for you to cater a solution for that problem.
Of course. Let's look at locations now. What are some of the more desirable locations you're seeing at the moment for buying or for renting?
That's a very good question. Obviously, Dubai is a growing, I would say, geography in terms of you always get new like suburbs and new buildings and new locations. But traditionally, if you look at the commercial side of Dubai was Behnam Bargh Dubai. But over the last 10 years, you have Business Bay, which has been the center of kind of Dubai now. A lot of companies that look at Business Bay, they love it. It's by the metro, it's by Sheikh Zayed, the accessibility is great. So Business Bay, we get a lot of demand. Downtown, they have their own clientele as well because they want to be next to Burj Khalifa, maybe some law firm. DIFC, DIFC normally is a free zone that cater for international banks, insurance company. The ones that want to be governed by common law and not Sharia law. And also we get a lot of demand for DMCC free zones, Jebel Ali. DMCC is JLT and Jebel Ali obviously is a port. So these are the areas that we get a lot of demand. So the top two are Business Bay and JLT.
Okay, because I mean, I don't really know too much about commercial myself,
Yeah.
but DIFC just always has that.
Yes.
Even since I've been here the last 14 years, has always been DIFC is the place to be.
Correct. And the reason for that is, look, if you're a mainland license or if you're in any free zones, you're governed by the law of regulations of that free zone. And that free zone ultimately is governed by the law of the Emirates of Dubai, which is a Sharia law, right? DIFC in Dubai or ADGM in Abu Dhabi are governed by a court which is not the Sharia law, it's by common law of England. So a lot of arbitrations, a lot of disputes, a lot of, I would say, cases can be resolved in that court. And a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, global organizations, they prefer that because they're familiar with that law and they want to be operating that. So DIFC normally attracts those type of companies, like the international banks, international insurance, those type of.
And it's look, not only the sort of legal aspect of things, I'm sure that obviously puts the premium up as well, but if you look at the sort of nearby amenities, the high-end restaurants, it's got that attractiveness that people say, I want to work here.
Absolutely. But that is a kind of what I call it the chicken and egg situation. You have all those, I would say, international organizations there, and normally if you look at the average income of employees in those organizations are higher. So you got the likes of the high-end restaurants, and where do you want to be? We want to be near people demographics that they can afford. So and then later, when you have those restaurants, more organizations want to be near those restaurants. So yes, I know what you're saying, and exactly that's the reason those organizations are there and those amenities are there, those high-end restaurants. And
I suppose it can be quite daunting for an entrepreneur trying to set up here, just trying to understand all these different zones and districts and what license he needs to operate in that particular type of business. You would obviously consult them on, right, this is the industry that you're in, here's the options that you have available to you.
CRC is a brokerage and advisory. Where we advise is not on licenses. We have a sister company called Open Hub, and that Open Hub Corporate Services, they advise on the type of license that you need to require. Once we know this person wants to, for example, get a DIFC license, then a broker would assist that person with the premises. So if I look at it purely from a commercial brokerage side, we're not mandated, and we don't have the knowledge and expertise to advise comprehensively on trade licenses. There's another business called corporate services and business setup category, where normally clients will go to that and then get the information. Once they know where they want to be, then they will come to a brokerage.
Okay. So Ben, most people know about residential real estates, but what different aspects are there or elements within the commercial real estate side of things?
That's a very good question. Many people, when they think of commercial, they only think of offices. Under the umbrella of commercial, obviously we have offices, but that's a very huge sector. We have industrial warehouses where businesses operate as a manufacturing, storage, and you also in UAE you've got commercial warehousing where for example in Alcos you can go and play some games within that warehouse. So it's like I've seen football facilities, for example, or boxing facilities, and then you've got retail, and we under retail we have shopping malls, shopping centers. You've got obviously showrooms on various key roads like Sheikh Zayed. And then you have what we call the mixed-use facilities and plots, and commercial villas. On Jumeirah Road, sometimes you see, dental facility on the commercial. So, there are different facets, but most people associate commercial with offices, which is correct, but there are other branches on there.
That's probably the bread and butter side of things. Let's talk about fees when either purchasing or renting a commercial unit, villa, warehouse. I don't know if they differ across the different aspects of commercial, but what typical fees would you be expected to pay?
Look, in sales transactions of residential and commercial, it's almost identical. You've got brokerage fee, transfer fee of 4%. You have, trustee fee, mortgage. If you're taking a mortgage, there are some fees associated with that. Conveyancing, where they help you with the legal element. The only difference is VAT. Now, VAT is not applicable to residential sales and leasing. It is applicable to commercial. So any premises that you're selling, you perhaps the seller needs to have a FTA approved TRN certificate and invoice produced to the buyer, and the buyer would pay 5% VAT. But that VAT obviously is claimed back through various means, and they need to consult their accountant for it. But yeah, that's the difference that I've seen. But the rest of the fees are very similar between residential and commercial.
Okay, last question I'm going to ask you is to predict what is going to happen within the commercial world here in the UAE.
Look, I don't have a crystal ball, and the UAE residential and commercial market is full of surprises all the time. At the moment, the trend is very upwards. But what I can tell you factually is there's a bit of a lack of supply. If the demand continues to be the same or grows, we're going to have a bit of an issue in the commercial sector where we cannot find premises for these new clients entering the market or for organizations that are planning to grow. That means the prices will go up. So my prediction is that for the next 2-3 years, the prices in commercial sector will go up, and eventually it will make it attractive for the developers to come to the market because the prices are going up so much. And then eventually, my hope is the supply and demand kind of make an equilibrium and balances each other. But at the moment, I don't see that that supply coming to the market.
Could that be eased if the government were to open up what district you have to work in and make it a bit more free for people to move around and work in different places?
It can. You look, for example, a lot of organizations, they have an office for the sake of having an office, but they're not really utilize it. They need to have an office of certain square because they have 10 people working.
Yeah.
Maybe they can ease some regulations around that. Having said that, as the demand grows, you need to have new offices. We have all these new residential developments. We should have a balanced, supply when it comes to residential and commercial. It can't be all residential or commercial. It needs to be, for example, every 10 residential building, you have 2 commercial.
Yeah.
As an incentive, government maybe can give some rebates and, I would say, help to entice those developers to come to the market for commercial.
Yeah, of course. And a lot more sort of developers as well are having a aspect of commercial within the buildings now as well, aren't they? They're making sure that they have those units at the bottom of the building available for the shores, the grocery stores or whatnot. I said last question for the last question. This is the last question. If you could change one thing within the commercial real estate market, what would it be?
The laws. The laws are exactly the same as residential laws. I don't think necessarily all the laws can be applicable. So I'm hoping that, I think the government is already working on it, that they bring commercial specific laws where both parties, whether they are sellers or buyers or tenants or landlords, are protected in a right way. So that's my only hope and wish at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Ben, last part of today, then I'll let you get back to your busy schedule. Going to do some quick fire questions. You're going to tell me, if you were an investor, what would your preference be?
Sure.
Okay? So I'm going to give you 2 options. First, shelling core or fitted office space?
Fitted.
Okay, why?
You have a huge capex to fit out an office. Obviously, if you are investor and you want to buy to kind of lease it, you will probably get a better return. But if you're an end user and you have long-term vision to stay, then obviously shell and core. But as an investment perspective, I was thinking.
Okay, perfect. Commercial villa or a showroom?
Tough question. Showroom for me. Showroom, especially if you're on a main road and you get good visibility. For me, it has more legs than commercial villa. Commercial villa has got its limitation because where the locations of these villas are these days, they're great, but they're not as busy as like the ones that like Sheikh Zayed, the showrooms.
Yeah. Okay, free zone or mainland?
It depends what you're operating in. If you're operating, you're mandated to have a mainland license if you're catering for mainland businesses. So it depends on the nature of your business. But if you're just like a holding company, I would say free zone.
Yeah, okay. Open plan layout or partitioned office?
Open plan all day.
An office with no elevator versus an office with no parking?
Depends how many floors is it.
6. And you're on the 6th floor.
I would say more parking because I don't mind walking a bit, but as long as you get people getting good parking spots, that's all right.
An office with a game room versus an office with a nap room.
Game room. I'm not a big nap room. You sleep at home, come to office. If you want to play hard and work hard in the office, not sleep.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Who does that? Okay, that's the end of our questions. Ben, thank you very much for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really interesting for me as someone who doesn't know too much about the commercial real estate market to ask you these questions. And
Thank you so much for having me, Chris and Bayut, and as always, my pleasure.
No problem at all. For those at home watching, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully you found this interesting, insightful. Any questions you have related to the commercial real estate side of things, Ben and his team are more than happy to answer any questions or give you any advice. Thank you for joining another episode of the Real Estate Labs. You're listening now to the Real Estate Lab with Bayut.